Oh, cool.
You don't even know what that is.
I don't. You're going to tell me about it when I'm done my conference in 1.5 minutes. Okay, folks, we'll be going live in just a few seconds here. And in the focus right now, we had the earlier conversation via Zoom. I hope everyone was able to hear that. But just in a very quick summary, we're having people in the province really concerned about what COVID-19 might mean in terms of illness and what it might mean in terms of our long-term future in Saskatchewan. People are really worried. The numbers that are coming out through the article that just came out from SHA, the stories that came out about the choices that weren't made in the lead up to this that could have made us more ready. It's making people more and more concerned. And while the last thing we want to do is raise concern, I think it is a moment for us to say, okay, we haven't done everything right up until now, but what matters most is what we do today and tomorrow. This is a critical moment for us to decide what kind of a future we want, what kind of a response we want in Saskatchewan, what kind of outcomes we want. And that's why we're calling on the government to do 3 key things: expanding the emergency measures, expanding testing, and expanding the amount of information they're making available to the public. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can to have physical distance go on, decrease the transmission, to trace and to test everyone we can to identify cases early and trace their contacts, and then make sure that people actually get clear information so that they know what it is we're up against, what our best options are, and are able to do their part to make sure that Saskatchewan turns out to be a good news story instead of the worst outcomes here as we face the COVID-19 challenge in our province. So with that, I'll open it up. Again, my sincere apologies for the tech. This seems to be working better. We'll stick with this model for coming days when it's not possible to be in person. Thanks so much, and go ahead with questions.
Do you see the SHA document as a worst-case scenario, and what can you say in relation to how the public should be concerned if that is how you're interpreting it? And I guess what's probably in here is a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, and that's why I keep focusing on that there are 2 paths in front of us. The scenario that we see there of a health system that's overwhelmed, of potentially thousands of people losing their lives in this, is a very real possibility if we don't take the right measures. They've done the numbers from what I've been able to see based on a 30% infection rate. We know Dr. Shahab has been saying somewhere between 30 and 70%. So in fact, what we see in there is a conservative estimate, which is even more frightening to think that there are potentially worse outcomes. But it's not the only path available to us. And as we look at countries like Italy or what the UK has done, where they've gone down that mitigation-only model, this is what we end up seeing: healthcare systems that are overwhelmed, lots of loss of life. That's not the only model available to us. We also have South Korea. South Korea, where they did significant measures on physical distancing, but they also focused heavily on testing and tracing and quarantining the contacts of people who were positive. And that, to me, is one of the key pieces that we haven't got to yet in Saskatchewan. So we need to expand the emergency measures, decrease the size of gatherings, close down non-essential businesses, protect people in the essential businesses and other services, and also move to more testing, earlier testing, and more tracing of the contacts and isolation of those contacts if we're going to wind up with a scenario that doesn't look like what the SHA document says. Are there questions, folks?
Hey Ryan, Peter again. I was trying to find where this was. I just was able to dig it up while we were switching from Zoom to the conference call here. In a letter sent home to parents from one of the school officials out in this direction, just at the end of last week, they mentioned that many students will receive learning resources in their teacher already, but they did ask for the ministry to wait before they send any further learning things home. Is that a concern to you that the ministry telling you to stop sending learning tools home with students while we have no direction from what's going to come up in April?
You know, what I've understood from teachers is that they were asked to take this week off, not be sending materials so that the work could be done, so that there's some consistency both in the method of delivery as well as the materials being sent. So I think there's some rationale there that is not completely without good sense, that we would want to make sure that teachers have some time also to prep. So you might have some teachers feeling real ready, others that have a lot of work to do to get prepared. We know that next week we're meant to see teachers providing instruction online and providing more materials, and I'm really glad that's happening, and I hope that the Ministry of Education will be giving lots of support to those teachers to be able to maintain two really key things there. The educational opportunities for students so they're not missing this time of learning, and two, the connection with their teacher and with each other, as this can be a really isolating time, and that gives them a chance to feel like they're still part of their class. Who's ever not muted their jams, please do. If no further questions, we'll be available throughout the day. I know there was this bit of a wrinkle in the technology. Again, appreciate the patience. Please feel free to call Dave or Doyle, and they'll set up follow-up interviews as desired. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and stay safe out there. Sorry, we got someone coming. Yeah, still here.
Okay. Yeah, this is Dawson Brown with the Estevan radio station.
Dawson.
We were just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on the specification of communities affected not being made. It's just kind of saying there was a release saying there's 5 south of Regina, which we couldn't really get an answer as to maybe is that in Weyburn, is that in Estevan, Carlisle, that sort of thing. There's just your sort of opinion on the non-specification of these incidents.
Yeah, so we originally had more specificity, more clear information coming from the government. They've chosen to give us less information, and that's a step backwards, and we're calling for the opposite approach. Give us more information on what you're modeling, what you think is going to happen in the province. Give us more information on how the people who have been affected with COVID-19 are doing, including whether anyone's in ICU or if there's been any loss of life, and tell us what communities these are in. It changes the response of folks in Estevan who are being asked to do physical distancing measures. If they know it's in their community, they will understand that that's a real concern, that they have to do it now, that they can't wait. It also, changes when you call the number of cases in a particular community, changes the level of response, whether it's an epidemic or just an isolated case. People need to know this in order to be responding well, both the health professionals as well as the general public.
Did they give you a reasoning as to why they backtracked on that?
I haven't seen any reasoning for that. I don't know why they've made that decision. I hope that it's understandably, potentially it's to do with workload, and I hope that's the only reason, and that there would be nothing coming from the government in terms of wanting to give the public less information, because that's not the road we want to go down. We want the public to know what's going on so that they're better able to participate in the measures that will help us. Okay.
I guess what would be the next step in kind of, in your opinion, in going towards dissolving this as a problem?
Right. So and if you see the release, what we've talked about today are three things: expanding the emergency measures, so decreasing gatherings from 25 to 5, closing non-essential businesses, and creating standards to protect workers and shoppers and clients in those essential services so that we have the right physical distancing happening there. Expanding testing by increasing testing to more people who are symptomatic with things that seem like COVID-19 but don't have a travel history. Test them too. And anyone who's positive, aggressively test, trace, and isolate their contacts to make sure that that virus isn't spreading through those known cases. For this, we will need support from the federal government to have more testing capacity. And then lastly, expanding the information available, making sure the public knows exactly what's going on and exactly what they need to do to help us tackle this.
And so are you in favor of the call for those nurses that are retired, as well as grad students being called to register their names for the possibility of being called to work?
I sure am. I know other places have called in folks who have retired or suspended their licenses or are just about ready to practice. I think that's a really important thing to do. I've also had calls from dentists who are now not doing their roles. They've got lots of health training, medical training. They could help as well. We need to look at everybody who could potentially be part of this solution, getting involved and getting them to work.
That's all for me for now.
Okay, thanks. Well, then going once, going twice, going 3 times. Thanks again, folks. Call into our office if you'd like a one-on-one interview. Otherwise, we'll see you again tomorrow with better tech. Thanks.